guys, thanks for checking out the channel tonight. This episode is going to be about suspension. We're going to be doing a bunch of restoration on the front end of the car, including bigger sway bars. What else here? We're going to be doing offset castor bushings in detail so that you understand how to install them on your own car. We're going to be doing more cleaning. We're going to be doing some ball joints. So stay with me today. And please make sure you check out my Instagram channel at Wrench Rampage. Make sure you tell a friend about the channel. I'd like to get more subscribers on my YouTube channel if possible. So thanks a lot for tuning in today, and let's get right down to it. Okay, so getting on the suspension, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be pulling the Brembos off. Now, I just suspend them with a piece of cord from the shock tower, which is up there, and because I don't want to take them completely off because I don't want to have to drain the brake system and then bleed it. So the brake lines, although they're a little bit dirty, are in good shape. They're pliable. They're actually stainless steel ones, so they'll be totally fine. My plan is to pull the coilovers and pull the knuckle right off. I wanna probably take a good look at the ball joint, which is at the bottom. It's at the end of this arm here, and that ball joint, if the boot is cracked, I'll have to take it apart and inspect the ball joint. If it doesn't need replacing, I'll repack it with grease and I'll reinstall a new boot. And the end links on the sway bar look okay, but they definitely need to be cleaned up. End links are right here. So next step is to pull that off both sides, and then we're going to be dropping the subframe. Okay, so where we're at here is tore down most of the outside of the arm here. This will be the Evo 6 ball joint. This one looks not too bad. Might have a little bit of a cut in the boot here, but so these ones are nice because they bolt on, and so does the bracket itself bolts onto the arm. So you have a steel set ball joint which can be replaced on the end of the aluminum arm, rather than on the 5 where you have to press the ball joint into the aluminum arm, which is far more difficult to replace. So just a little bit about the castor bushing. So the castor bushing is going to be on this end of the arm. When I pull the arm out, I'll be able to show you. So what the castor bushing is going to do is it's going to add half or 1 degree of castor, which means it moves the wheel forward. So what that does for handling is it makes handling a lot sharper, especially turn in. Now, the reason that manufacturers don't add a lot of castor is that it tends to make the steering overly sensitive. So for racing, it's great, but for driving around, you may drop something, reach down, move the wheel a bit, and without that positive castor, what happens is the car becomes very, very twitchy. So for racing applications, or for someone who likes really crisp handling, you'd want to get those castor bushings. For a regular daily driver, it would make the car a bit nervous. Okay, so that's all the stuff I've taken off so far. Most of it's going to be cleaned or replaced. Okay, the subframe's out. Subframe's only like 6 bolts. There are 2 really long ones that go into here, that go into the frame rail of the car, sort of under here. And then there are two at the back that coincide with the castor end of the A-arm. Okay, so there's the arm. Now, you can tell by how the sway bar is in here that it's impossible to change the sway bar out without dropping this subframe. Now, if you were to drop this subframe with the engine in, you would need to pull the exhaust. You'd also need to pull the transfer case because the transfer case on the 456 runs below the subframe. So those would need to come out if you were doing this with the engine in. Now, as far as the sway bar, you're going to see online that that a front sway bar on these cars is pointless. That's lots of people's opinion. I think it's somewhat pointless, I guess, unless you're going to be participating in motorsports where you're on a track. That's when you would basically need access to that front bar. These 456 cars on tarmac are engineered for slight understeer to neutral. So what a lot of people do is they'll add a bigger rear sway bar to create slight oversteer. The problem is that if you decide to add a really big rear sway bar without doing the front one as well to balance the car out, you're going to go into really high oversteer conditions. So people get into wanting to race, especially these cars on tarmac because they're very capable, and they decide, okay, I'm going to do the back sway bar, but I'm going to do the biggest one I can get. Well, that's going to cause severe oversteer on these cars. So what I would recommend is to balance that out, if you want to go a really big bar in the back, then you go a smaller bar in the front to balance that out. And it does work. But if you go for a moderately sized rear bar and you leave the stock front bar in, that's okay too. That'll give slight oversteer to the car. So the front bar is important if you want to go bigger. So on this car, because I want the feeling of keeping the car really flat, I'm going to go with a very big bar in the back. So I'm going to have to do the front one to balance it out. That's just how it is. So on these bolts, you really want to be delicate. They are up into the subframe of the car, well, the frame of the car, and they could be a little bit corroded. So I would not just blast them off with an impact. I wouldn't do that. I would go very slowly by hand, and if you have to work it in and out, then that's what you do. If you have to pump the frame rail full of WD-40, because you can get to that big one through here if you shoot WD-40 down this frame rail. The frame rail you'll be able to get over here, and so that's a trick to loosen off those, but don't just blast them off with air tools. Those cage nuts that are inside the body are vulnerable to spin, and if they spin, you're gonna have to cut the frame open and do some welding to get those out. So you don't want to do that. So take it easy on those. Use some hand tools to remove them. Okay, so we're going to be working on a lot of cleaning and updating the subframe and the suspension arms, cleaning the brakes, doing some wheel bearings, whole bunch of work coming up here. Okay guys, so what we're going to be starting with is the front subframe.
Now, let's take a look at this. So the front subframe contains the sway bar. We have the end links on the sway bar. We have the right and left A-arms that contain the ball joints, which are bolt-on. So they might have to be pressed out, but they are bolt-on, which is nice. They don't have to be pressed back in necessarily. And they also contain the bushings that would provide castor, which, I mean, you can look up castor online and get the full explanation, but basically it affects turn in and the sharpness of the steering. So what I'm going to be doing is tearing this down, cleaning up the front subframe, getting rid of all this dirt and grime, washing it all down, so I can at least start with some clean parts here. It's pretty dirty. Okay, so I'm gonna get at that. Okay, so I tore down the subframe. Sway bar is off, end links are off the sway bar, and I took off the brackets as well off the sway bar, which I'll be reusing. Cusco includes the bushings in the kit. So here's the old sway bar and the new sway bar. So the old one comes in at about 23 millimeters. New one comes in at about 25. That's probably supposed to be 25. So I'll be going plus 2 mil on the front. So that'll be a 25 millimeter sway bar in the front. And I haven't taken a look at the difference in the back, but I'll record that a bit later here. So now we got a bunch of cleaning, and I'll get into those offset bushings, the castor bushings for the arms as well. Hey guys, so where we're at with the front suspension here is it's all disassembled. I've just been doing some cleaning, and I've been kind of getting ready to replace the ball joints. So just taking a look at what's going on here. So over here I have the subframe. Washed it down with a degreaser and scrubbed it down with some sandpaper. I'm just going to do a single stage spray balm on it to just clean it up a bit. The rust is just surface rust. This subframe is very heavy gauge steel, so yeah, I just want it to look like not terrible, so that's what I'll be doing with that. Now, I pulled off the arms, and what I did was I used some aircraft stripper. Just someone decided at one point just to spray balm them. They're meant to be bare aluminum, and so I just wanted to go back to that. So I used some aircraft stripper, and yeah, I just peeled the spray balm right off because the surface underneath wasn't even prepped, so it came off very easily. So that's what I have right now. So the way this goes in the car is the ball joint is on a big steel bracket, some studs in it. It's like that in the car with 3 big nuts here with some washers. So I unbolted that. And what you're left with is the studs and a big heavy bracket with the ball joint. Now the ball joint is set up exactly like a giant tie rod. So if you look at the new one, all it is you have a tapered shaft that is friction fit, and you have a big nut. And so you just have to send this home probably with an impact,
And so what it'll do is it'll crush this rubber boot up a little bit as it bottoms out, and you'll be good. So I'm going to be replacing the one on here. And what you'll need for this is likely, you'll probably need a press, or because it's very, very similar in design to a tie rod, I have a tie rod puller here, which I'm thinking will work. So that'll force that out, and then we'll just reinstall the new one. What I'll do when it's out is I'll clean this up, with a wire wheel, just make it look nice. I'll probably just repaint this black because I don't mind this end being black, but the rest of it had to go back to natural aluminum. So the next thing, the ball joint will be replaced, and I'll video that and see how that goes. Okay, so I have my ball joint puller here, a couple sockets. I threw this in a vise. So let's see how easy this comes off here. Okay, so that came off pretty easy. We have to push the ball joint out. So with that, we're going to use this tool right here. Okay, so got some distance with that. So I guess one thing that you'd probably notice, eye protection. I mean, I definitely would not want to take that in the face, so it flew across the room. But those things are under a lot of pressure because of that tapered engagement that I showed you guys earlier. So just be very cautious. That thing would load up and it'll go a fair distance. A more safe way to do that, to be totally honest, would have been just to put it in a press. Then at least it's just shooting at the ground. So again, this is a good time for me to repeat my disclaimer that I'm doing this, these videos as a hobby, just showing you guys what I do in my shop. Take the proper safety precautions. I don't take any responsibility for any injuries that happen where you copy me in my video and you end up severing an arm or something like that. So don't do that. So anyway, so we're in a position now where we can clean up that, well, I don't know what this would be called. I guess it's like a part of the ball joint. So we're gonna clean this up, make it a little better looking than it is right now, and then reinstall that ball joint. As far as the installation, like I said before, you'd probably want to copy a torque value if you have no experience with this sort of stuff. Copy a torque value with somewhere with a similar setup. If you do have experience with it, especially tapered rod end type engagement suspension parts, then just do what you normally do. So I'm going to clean this part up and continue on with my suspension modifications here.
Okay, so I'm just gonna break down the offset castor bushing install for you guys just so that there's no doubt how these things go together. There isn't much on the internet as far as directions for this stuff, so yeah, I mean, don't bother looking really. It's nowhere to be found, and I've done a whole bunch of sets of these. So let's take a look at the arms and I'll explain exactly how these things go together. Okay, so here we have the arms in their correct alignment. So front of the car is that way. We have where the castor bushing rests, which is in here in this housing. And so if you can imagine, this is where the end link for the suspension is. This is where the ball joint sits. The wheel is out here. So now what we have to picture here is we have the offset built into the bushing. So what we're going to be doing with this, if you can visualize it, to increase castor, we would want this shaft to go in this direction, move in this direction. So imagine the wheel is here. If it moves in this direction, the wheel moves forward. That's what we want. So to achieve that, this is the bushing. See the hole there? So it's going to be installed like this. Okay, and that will allow the shaft to move that way. Now, the part that is forward, where there's a little bit of an extra bushing there, goes like this in the housing. Okay, and then that sleeve slides in there, and it's made to fill up that little relief there. So like that. So what I would recommend you do is you mark these bushings, put some marker here, okay, so that when you have this off the arm, you don't get confused. With these type of sleeved type bushings, once you push them in, if they happen to be in the wrong alignment, they're garbage. You're gonna have to cut them out. They're almost impossible to get out because of the interference fit. So you only have one try at this. So I would, before you pull the housings off the arms, I would mark it with a marker, however you want to do it, so that in your head you can keep it straight, which direction these are supposed to be. So when I put these together for the setup and I put them in the press, I'll show you how I mark it, and then at least give you an idea of what you can do, so that, because it doesn't matter if you use my method. What matters is if you use a method that you remember and you understand, so that this gets aligned properly. So so yeah, I'll show you what I do, and then figure out with your own way of doing things so that you don't wreck a set of bushings. Okay, so getting ready to put those offset castor bushings in. Right now I finished up the subframe. I took it down a little bit with wire brush and a few other things, and ended up putting on the oversized sway bar. This is plus 2 millimeters, so it's 25 mil sway bar. And yeah, make sure that you grease these bushings, but it moves fine. It is quite thick. Deceivingly, I know it's only 2 millimeters, but if you look at them side by side, it is quite a big difference. And Cusco and Safety 21 stuff for the Evos is good quality. So they included larger bushings, which some kits do not, and then you struggle to get these bushings to work over top of the new bar. You reuse the stock brackets, and that's it. It's on. Oh, and you gotta laugh at the directions. The only English part right here. So this product is designed for use in Japan only. It must not be used in any other country. Well, sorry Cusco, I've broken that rule like, I don't know, for the last 15 years, so. Now, as far as the offset castor bushings, they are ready to go. I put on the mounting points for the end links for the sway bar, new ball joints, and then I mapped out the castor bushing. So I put a red line on the side of this. It goes this way, and I put a red line on here too. And so I'm just gonna line those red lines up in the press, and as well. I put a R for right side and up if I somehow forget which direction this bracket goes, because this is going to be pressed right off. So, and it's going to correspond with the R on the arm, and so you know, that's pretty close to idiot proof. I have messed stuff up before, and I don't underestimate my own ability to mess things up. So I mark things, bag things, I do all kinds of things. I write myself notes, take pictures. So do what you got to do. And on the other side, left side, L, and again, up. So I'm gonna remove those old bushings. So what happens is you hit this with an impact, this whole piece will come off, and this metal component is where you have to push the bushing out of, and then push these new ones in. All right, so we'll be doing that next. Okay, so here's how I remove bushings and how I do it kind of as painlessly as possible. Some people smash them out with a hammer, some people burn them out with a torch. I don't do either of those. So certainly you can do it the way that you want to. What I use is I use a drill. I drill around through the rubber. It makes a big mess, but doesn't damage anything. And then I knock out the center. And then what I do is I take a reciprocal saw and I cut a few notches on either side just to release the tension. And then I just knock the center out with a hammer. So this is what it looks like when you're done. Now you're going from this to this. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to push the center over, moving the arm forward. Okay. All right, so we got one down, got one more to go, and yeah, I'll show you how you install them as well. Okay, so our offset caster bushings are all set up. We have the metal sleeves through the middle. We have the bushings pushed into the stock housings. So let's take a look where we're at. So here we have our arms. Have our offset bushings greased up. And we have them marked. So this is right side up. And I know it goes this way with that larger part of the bushing sticking out. Okay, so the larger washer goes on first over the shaft. I'm going to double check this is right side. Slide this on. Clean up some of the grease here. And throw this on. All right, that's the first one. Second one here, once again. Washer to retain the bushing because they're going to get squished, right? Double check the markings here. Right, so that's where we're at. You get a little bit of squish on the poly bushing, but that's why you have this washer that they include with the kit so that the bushing doesn't tear over the arm. And this part here, again, it's retaining the bushing. You can see that the fastener is offset, so all right. So now that's going to go back on the subframe. So at that point here, we've completed the subframe, the arms, the offset caster bushing, ball joints, bunch of cleaning, and so that subframe is actually ready to go back on the car. And then we're going to be moving on to the suspension. We're going to be moving on to replacing the wheel bearings and a bunch of other things. So yeah, so we're moving along here quite briskly, and we are definitely on schedule to get this car on the road for the summer. Hey guys, thanks again for watching the video tonight. Make sure that you check me out on Instagram at Wrench Rampage, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to make sure that you get notifications when I put up new videos. We're going to be moving on to more suspension next episode here, and I hope you stay tuned to the channel. Have a good night.